Welcome to Math Foundations in Pre-Cal 10. This is outcome 10.07 on slope. Lesson 1, we're just going to look at a graph and figure out how to calculate the slope from a graph and all things graphically slopey. All right, so if you don't know already, slope is really just a measure of how steep the line is. Okay, so it's the slantedness. If you think about if you've ever gone skiing, how steep the hill is, that's the slope. We use the variable m to represent the slope. Don't ask me why. I actually have no idea why they choose m, but m is the variable that represents slope. And we always write slope as a fraction in lowest terms. Okay, so my formula for slope is m for slope is equal to my rise over my run. So what does that mean? Well, if I have a line drawn on a graph, basically if I was to find any 2 points that fall nicely between lines, so I've got a nice point there and a nice point there, and I create what's called a slope triangle. Okay, so a slope triangle means, imagine this is a road and you can't go directly from point A to point B, and you need to kind of go the long way around, and you can only travel in straight lines. So you can create a slope triangle, which would be over 1 and up 3 here. This up and down portion is called the rise, okay, or the fall if it's going downward. We read a line like we read a book. This one is rising as we go left to right. So this is my rise and this is my run. So in this example here, my rise would be 1, 2, 3 units, and my run would be 1 unit. So my slope would be 3 over 1, or you could say just 3. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and calculate some slopes. Now, the tricky part about these is that you have to be able to find a spot that's easy to see where the lines cross through points. So in this one, it's not too bad. I can see a whole bunch of points. You pick any 2 points on the line. Maybe I'm going to pick that one and that one. It doesn't matter. You can pick any 2 points. And then we want to connect, like create a slope triangle. Now you can either go up and over, or you can go over and up. It doesn't really matter. I tend to follow the slope formula that says that it's rise over run. So I usually draw out the rise or the fall first, like working left to right. So I start on the left-hand side and I have to go up. So I usually would do rise and then run. It's not wrong to go the other way. We'll talk about that in a little minute here. So I go up and over. Then basically I figure out how big those line segments are. So we can see that this one is 1, 2, 3, 4 units there, and 1, 2, 3, 4 units there. So my slope, the rise value, that's the up and down one. Okay, so remember that rise is my up and down and run is my side to side. My rise value is 4, my run value is 4. So that reduces to 1 over 1, or just 1. Okay, I'm actually going to skip over this one because it also has a slope of 1. I didn't really mean to do that. So let's look at the one down below here. Okay, so again, we're going to find 2 nice points on the line. So for example, I don't want to choose this point because I'd have to estimate. So basically you want to find where does it cross exactly through the corner of a box. There's one right there. So let's identify that point. And let's find another one. So we continue on. Ooh, that's close, but not quite. Nope, 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 nope. This at the very end of the arrow right here, looks like it hits the corner. That's the tricky part about doing this from a graph, which is why in the next lesson, we're going to learn how to do it with a formula, because then we can be more reasonable in our answers. Okay, so now again, I'm going to read this like I read a book. I go left to right. The first point I come to is here. I have to go down and then over. Could go over and then down, but again, I like to do the rise first. Okay, so the up and down movement first. So I'm going to go down and over. So my slope is rise over run. Okay, how big are these line segments? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my rise, which is my up and down, is 4, and my run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now here's the problem though, actually, because this line is falling as I go left to right, and my rise wasn't actually 4 because I went down 4, it was a fall of 4. So what we technically say then is that the rise was a negative 4 because we went down. And this then has a negative slope. So lines can have a positive slope or a negative slope, depending on which direction they are moving. Let's take a look at another one. Okay, let's find 2 points on this line. So again, we want to find nice points. We have to be careful because these ones are really close, but they're not quite. Oh gosh, this one's a little bit tough. So there's one right here for sure. And then I would say, I don't even know if there's really another really good one on here. Let's see. Well, I think we're going to have to take this one, even though I don't actually think that it is. It looks like it's slightly above, but we'll take that one. Okay, so we're going to go down and then over. So we count out the lengths of those segments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my slope, which is rise over run, I went down 7 and then over 5. So my slope is -7 over 5. Okay, so that is how we calculate slope from a graph. Again, the tricky part is trying to figure out exactly where those points cross through the corners. You have to be very careful with that. So what we've seen is that we can have a positive slope, a negative slope. Okay, so a positive slope means that the line rises or increases as we move left to right. So this is going upwards as we move across. A negative slope falls or decreases as the line moves left to right. So this one, as we go left to right, that line is going downward. Okay. Slopes can also be zero slope. So if I was to take a look at this line here, for example, and pick 2 points on the line, and I went to do my rise and my run, well, what you can see there is that my rise would be 0 and my run would be 3. Well, 0 divided by 3 is 0. So when you have a horizontal line, okay, a horizontal line has a slope of 0, always, because of that. We can also get an undefined line. So if I take 2 points here, and I look at my rise and my run, so in this case, it rises 3 and it runs 0. Well, if you try to take your calculator and put in 3 divided by 0, you get an error. This is undefined. You cannot divide by 0. So when you have a vertical line, it has a slope of undefined. You have to kind of just memorize these ones. I mean, you can punch them in the formula, but sometimes it's easier to just memorize those ones. All right, let's look now at drawing a line. Okay, so if you remember to plot a coordinate point, we have an x value and then a y value. So I'm going to start by plotting that point -3, 2. So on the x-axis, I go over to -3, and on the y-axis, I go to 2. So I'm going to put my point there. And then if it has a slope of -1 over 2, so remember that this is the rise and the run. So what that means is that I want to go from that point that I just plotted down 1 and over 2. I want it to have a negative slope, so it's going to have to go downward across my graph. So I'm going to go down 1 over 2, and I'm going to put another point there. I actually like to continue that slope, keep going right to the edges of the graph paper. So down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2. And then I could actually even go the other way to have to go up 1 over to the left 2, up 1 over to the left 2. And once you have that, then you can take your ruler and connect those points. You want to make sure you always use a ruler or a straight edge when you are drawing a line. Okay, oops. And what you want to do is that you want to make sure that you go directly from edge to edge on your graph paper. Okay, so go right from edge to edge. And this line would continue on in both directions. So you're going to put in arrows at either end. Okay, so that is the line through the point -3, 2 and with a slope of -1/2. Okay, so let's do one more like that. So I need to draw a point through the line, or a line through the point 1 and 4. So on my x-axis 1 and on the y-axis up to 4, gets me right there. Now this one is a little bit tricky because it's just a single number. So remember that we need with a slope, we need a rise and a run. So this is going to be 3 over 1, right? Remember that I can make a denominator of 1. So I'm going to go up 3 and over 1. So up 3 over 1 from my point. That gets me to the edge. So then I'm going to go down 3 into the left, down 3 into the left, down 3 into the left. Keep going. I can't go again on my I ran out of space on my graph paper. So I am going to connect my points with a ruler, going right to the edge of my graph paper. And I want to put arrowheads on either end because that continues going. Okay. One last thing for us to look at. We'll just slide our paper down here. All right, so this question starts the same way. It wants us to draw a line through the point -2, -3. So we're going to draw there with a slope of -5/4. And then it wants us to find any other point on the line. Okay, so let's start by plotting our point at -2, -3. So that's going to be there. Then we want to do our slope down 5 over 4. Now what we see here is that I can't actually go down 5. I only have 4 spaces here. So I'm going to have to go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I can't go to the right this time because that would give me a positive slope and I want a negative slope. So I'm going to have to go to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's where my point is going to go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I've got that right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Okay, and I can't actually fit any more points in than that, so I've got just those 2 points. So I'm going to do my best to go through those 2 points. It's hard for me on the computer. Going to the edges of my paper and making arrowheads. Okay, so I've drawn my line. Now it wants another point. So the first point that I plotted was this one here, which was -2, -3. Well, when I created my slope, when I did my 5 and 4, I created another point. So all you have to do is give the coordinates of that point. Well, the x value is -6 and the y value is 2. So there's another point on the line. That's as easy as it can be. If you have one where you had more than one point that you created, you could take any of those points and give them as the answer. Okay, so now I want you to practice with your slope calculations. So there are practice questions that you can do on the next page. If you don't have a printer and you can't print this off, there is also a Delta Math assignment that you could do that would help you to find slope. So you could do that in place of these first questions, but then you'll need to come back and do questions 2 and 3 on some graph paper that you have at home.